He was there for about 15 minutes in order to do what he called a complete inspection of the property. My neighborhood includes the farm, where, as I'm sure you have observed, the side yard and barnyard are full of abandoned equipment and some abandoned buildings as well. Some in town consider it to be an eyesore. You may not be aware that there is also a sizable junkyard just to the east of my property on the farmland, which is fully visible when the leaves are gone. This was not there when I bought my house, but it's now full of heaps of abandoned household goods, vehicles, and farm equipment. I have photos that show what it was once, and it's very different from today. Now, my neighborhood, also between 150 Dartmouth College Highway, which is about 1.5 miles south of Grant Brook, and my house, there are 19 properties listed, 16 of which are residences. These houses are small to medium-sized places of modest appearance, most of which are gracefully aging. My house was 41 years old in 2021. Collectively, the taxes on these homes increased 10% in 2021. Mine, which has not had upgrades of any sort for about a dozen years prior to this year, 2022, increased by 20%. Just to the north of me is a large property of woodland and meadow that borders Grant Brook. It has $1 million home and other structures. Their elegant and perfectly maintained property is less than 20 years old. Their property tax went down 10% in 2021. Now, comparisons. I understand that this is required when you file an abatement, but it seems to be something that's pretty hard to do if you're not a real estate professional. And because there's so many individual houses in town, it's very hard to find something that compares to mine. So I really don't want to go there. I found a house on Shoestrap Road that's roughly comparable to mine. It's at 48 Shoestrap, comparable in style, age, and size, although it has several outbuildings, which I don't have, and 2 bathrooms to my one. And their assessment, their tax increased by 2% in 2021.
Their assessment or their tax?
Their tax.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. The assessor wrote that I didn't understand why my tax had increased in the form that he gave to you guys when you considered this. But this misrepresents the concerns that I voiced on my abatement application and that I have shared with you today. At least 50 other households in our small town have filed for abatements in 2021, a sizable number for a town as small as this. For myself, I have to wonder if the intent of the reassessment, which was equity, has been met in reality, as the outcome seems to so many to be unfair. And I hope that this is of concern to you as well. Now, I have a couple of questions. One is that, do you have the power to change your decision about my abatement?
It is my understanding we do not.
Okay, based on,
State law.
okay, then,
Information from several sources, and I asked Dina to double check, and it's the RSA 7616 and several sections, and 7617.
okay. So recourse is always through either BTLA or the court.
Correct. That's my understanding.
7616. All right, great, thanks very much.
What, if you don't mind my asking, what was, I don't have the forms in front of me from when we considered this and I don't recall, what was the property appraised at?
Look at that right
Oh,
there.
thanks, thank you. So it was assessed at 281,000?
It was higher than that.
I believe
291, that's what I have on my form.
the card shows 289.6.
That's gotta be adjusted.
Yeah, you're right, so,
Well,
it came in at 291,100. Originally, there was a slight assessment change down to 289.6.
He made an error that he discovered when he came to my house in the
Correct.
roof, and changed the assessment by $1,500.
Yes.
So, I mean, tell me to go jump in a lake if you want, but if you were gonna sell it, what would you wanna get for it? What do you think it's worth?
You know, I don't think it's worth, I don't think, it depends on what I think my house is worth. It depends on all the properties in town and what they are all worth. So,
I mean,
It's-
comparing changes in assessment that's a ridiculous, in my opinion, that's a crazy thing to do. You can't do that. The point of this assessment, of reassessment, is to try to get as close as we can to market value on all the
Right.
properties. And those change differently, and some properties
I
are
don't
maybe
think
under
my
assessed or
neighbor's
over assessed.
house, you know, on the huge property with the big house went down 10%.
Well, but
You
that
know,
isn't,
and I
that
have-
isn't the point of this. I mean,
No, I think
you
it
could go,
is.
no, you could go around town and identify all kinds of things that you don't think are fair
I
or
think
that are right.
discrepancies.
But what you have the right to do is complain or address if you think they got the wrong value for your property.
I think that's short-sighted, to tell you the truth.
Well,
And I think because there's so many people looking for equity out of this assessment, and that it's a broader situation than just me.
well, but do you think do you think this value is wrong?
I'm not gonna answer that.
Now, I
Because
think, my
I'm not a
understanding.
real estate agent, and I don't know how to assess a property. So I'm not gonna take a stab at that and give you a yes or no answer. But I think the assessment is inequitable, in the big picture. And that's why I wanted to talk about my neighborhood of, you know, a number of properties, and my particular situation.
Okay.
And if you guys, you know, wanna take that under advisement, that's fine, or not. But that's my reason for being here,
Okay. What else?
that's it.
So I noticed, first I just counted, I think it was 34 assessment applications this year. There may be more since the list.
I was given the number
There's
51.
more. There's
Okay,
more,
there
right?
are more, right,
For a reval abatement year,
Right.
yes.
okay. And reval abatement years are always higher numbers than during the interim 4 years or 5 years. Your application, it might have been helpful if some of what you have told us this morning had been included in it.
It was.
Okay, I didn't see it. I didn't, the packet
That-
Right.
That's the whole thing, yeah.
that came in, the only statement you made was what comparable properties were used by the professional assessor. I didn't see anything else. But nonetheless, I understand your concerns. Unfortunately, also, I think part of maybe what David was trying to get at is sometimes if you're in a neighborhood right next to a very high-end property, that can influence your property value as well. So,
And next to a dump.
well,
Let's put this
I
into
guess
context,
I wouldn't-
Judy.
I wouldn't call it a dump, it's a farm.
You haven't seen what I'm talking about, which is back under the trees.
Did the assessor see it? Did you,
No, because it was already leafed out.
So,
did you point it out to him, or?
He didn't ask.
okay.
It was a brief visit.
Ben,
Can we give Todd her written?
oh, sure.
I think we
Yeah,
We
if there's a view issues or contamination or a dump that she puts it on adjacent and Todd wasn't aware of that, I think it's not inappropriate to have that
No, I
information
think
transmitted to
that's-
him and let him see if he thinks that affects the value.
Yep, I think
He
that's,
absolutely should relook at whatever info, that's right.
yep.
You want me to send my
He wants it
statement
to be
in to Nina
correct.
Yes,
You're
please, that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
And we will
Submit it.
certainly,
when I am multitasking at home this
yes,
morning.
okay, we will
should.
forward.
Just about the reval in general, it was really unfortunate that it came in a year when the properties were in such demand. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody
Well,
heard the
and-
stories of, I put my
Right.
house on the market and it sold.
For a lot
XXX,
more.
yeah.
Yeah,
And-
no, I agree.
And 5 years from now, that might not be the case.
That's true.
And, you know, and
It might not be the case next year, and people can come in
Right.
and say, hey,
Yeah.
you know, this value's not right, but, I mean, I don't know, Judy's gonna get.
every
all the
5
different-
years is not a very precise
Is that how
marker.
often we reassess?
Yes,
By statute,
state
we're
laws
required to.
required.
I mean,
Every-
look, and what we
and-
have to do by law is we have to look at every property, and so
Right.
Ben and Judy and I can't do that, we don't know.
No, of
We're
course.
like you, so what do? We hire a professional to go out and do an assessment, and even that professional
agree.
assessor is using software and he's making assumptions, and there are necessarily going to be errors. But, and we hired the best assessor that we could find, we think, you know, that's what we can do is.
Pool is not huge.
That's
Yeah,
what I understand.
so, but when there's an error, when there's a problem, it's not, we can't say, it seems to me, you can't say, oh, you know what, there's all this inequity in it, and there's, you know, this is wrong and this is wrong, let's throw the whole thing out. But what we can do is if a specific value, if someone's property is overvalued, really what it boils down to, then, and that person can come in and say, look, he said my property was worth 500,000, but it's really only worth 350, and here's why. That we can address, but,
How would I know that?
well, okay, so I don't know. I mean, so we're telling you, or I guess, I don't know how you'd know it.
Right.
But,
Without getting it.
but that we can address. What it's much more difficult to do is say, well, you know, the overall assessment produced results that are unsatisfying, and, I mean, what do we do with that? How do
What
we?
about looking at a neighborhood though? Because I think that there's relevance there, and I think the fact that these many houses along the road all went up some of them quite a bit. There were, you know,
So I completely understand the
Yeah.
temptation to do that, to say, well, what happened to my neighbors and what happened to me? But that,
but it's a pattern.
but that's not, from my perspective, that's not a very useful thing, because the whole point of the assessment is not, the easiest thing in the world would be to say, look, our tax needs went up 3%, let's just raise everybody's tax bill 3%. That's not the point of the statutory reassessment.
I understand that.
The point of that assessment is, values change differently.
Mhm.
There may have been errors in the past, there may be properties that were undervalued or overvalued, and so the whole point of making us do this every 5 years is to go across the whole town and to try to get as close to market value for everybody as we can.
Right.
And that's gonna necessitate that some properties change, some go up, some go down, some go up more than others. So the mere fact that you're not at the average of 3% or whatever it was.
4.
Yeah, is not, that doesn't, that isn't.
Right. I'm saying that the variables are too broad. The variability is too broad.
Okay, so,
Again, that's out of our control.
yeah, I don't think we can resolve that here
I
today.
understand.
But the argument that
It's
you
an
made,
interesting conversation.
what you've,
And the last thing you want is us to be out there assessing property.
that's exactly right.
You have
Good,
much
you
better
might
things
buy
to
you.
do.
Well,
Legally, you can't anyway, so I'm sorry.
Sue,
Having, coming from a position of having been on the board 5 years ago during the reassessment, I can understand the problem. But it just seems that this year, the inequities are so blatant that there's something very different from what happened 5 years ago.
Well, it was very different what happened.
The economy,
It's,
it's just,
Well,
Well,
you know,
it's the
this
median houses.
doesn't bear on the economy, it bears on evaluations or assessments.
And sales that we have in this town.
And
So
sales,
That's
right.
what the
The
inequity
sales
is,
really
but you can't
skewed
control
it.
that.
I think,
Median houses were selling for above median prices, so that
Right.
affects everything.
So we're high-end
I
houses,
think we
high-end
kind of
properties.
beat
You know,
around the
when
bushes here.
neighbors to neighbors, you know, one goes up 2,000, one goes down 200, and there's no difference. So, you know, it's side-by-side houses. There's something very inequitable about what happened this year.
I take seriously how folks feel. I think that we've had a number of meetings about the issue. We appreciate Jan taking the time to come in and talk personally about hers. we will have him relook at that. If other folks care to do that, all we can do is listen and refer their properties back to Todd. But remember, September 1st is, I believe, the deadline for filing with the DRA or court.
No, the BTLA.
I mean, the BTLA. sorry.
It's September, right?
September first, I think.
So you have a month and a couple weeks. Anyway, we will forward this, you get it to Dina, Dina will get it to Todd.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, thank you. We have next on our agenda at 9:30, we have Sue up. Sue, you are here, would you like to go, Mr. Brown?
Yes, I missed the public comment period, or I was
Yes, you
setting
did.
up my toy.
Yes.
Will you be discussing the right to know request that
Yes.
I put in? Good, that's all I have, thank you.
You're welcome. Sue?
Yes. As a result of the information session we had months ago for the milfoil problem in Post Pond, we decided that it would be very beneficial to have a kiosk at the boat landing with information on how to recognize both the native and invasive milfoil, as well as other public information that's needed regarding the cyanobacteria and everything else. And we would like to replace the posts and signage that's there with the kiosk.
I'm holding up the picture. The
So-
sign, the signage
Yeah,
to
That's not
go,
very attractive.
and then
well-
put this nice kiosk right here that will have everything on it.
Yeah,
It's
and
a-
just
that's-
combine.
So all those miscellaneous,
Kiosk, I always see.
It's not here, it's gonna go
Kiosk.
right here.
here is the
And these are
kiosk.
gonna go away and be on here.
I'm fine with it.
Bless you.
It's gonna look great.
So, and who's gonna maintain it, please?
Well, that's a good question. I think, I don't know that answer completely.
It would be somebody from the
Well,
Conservation
I don't know,
Commission
I've gone
Yeah.
and
putting
named,
material.
hammered stuff up
Did you?
that's fallen down.
It would be the Conservation
It will be the
Commission.
Conservation
Sure.
Commission. Thank you. Because I'm certainly in favor of it, but I see a lot of signs deteriorating and not being fixed back up. I myself have put a couple up.
We want to remove what's there on the right
Yep,
and put the post in the hole that the other post comes out of, so.
yep, great.
That'll be the location. And then put everything that's pertinent.
And so then if we have any notices or anything, they can go on the kiosk. So it'll be big enough to accommodate.
I am gonna ask that it be shorter, because I
Shorter?
can't see the top of the kiosk
Well,
at the
that one
beach.
out there is very tall, you're right,
Right.
yeah.
So I-
Yeah, so that's a good
Down
idea.
where
Yeah,
I can
this
see
is-
it.
eye level.
Approximation, okay.
Yep.
What do we wish to do?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Thank you, David, thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Other comments on this? Okay, all those in favor? Judy, aye. Go for it,
That's
Sue.
great.
Will
Okay,
do.
great,
That was a
great,
tough
great.
fight.
Do you have somebody, a contractor or somebody that can help you with the construction or the?
Oh, yes.
You're good with that?
We have volunteers. The Conservation Commission is gonna pay for the materials. And we have an excellent carpenter and team that's going to put it together and install it.
Awesome.
No,
Thank
I'm
you.
not doing it. You don't want me to do it.
Oh, it sounds like the way I fix things. Okay, thank you, Sue, good work. That'll be nice. All right. We're really screaming along.
There you are.
Would you like would you like to present about the solar request for? Whatever, RFP. Jim,
So, exciting news, 29 donors, including our initial large donor, have pledged $96,300.
wow, congratulations.
We went back to Revision, which a year ago had given us an initial estimate, and asked them to give me a ballpark. And they said their costs have gone up 10%. They can't see this going much beyond $85,000. So it strikes me that we're ready. And what I need is some sense of how this is all going to work, because there are a lot of players involved, and I'm quite new at how a committee works with the select board, works with Dina, works with town council, who's gonna, who's on first, who's on second. that sort of
Everyone's
thing.
on first to start.
But it seems to me that the first issue is, I get in touch with those 29 donors and say success, because if you recall, we simply said we're gonna ask for your pledge, because if we don't get enough money, there's no reason, then we'd have to send your money back. But I'm ready to do that, and Dina, I think, has agreed or told me that she would set up a specific account.
We'll track that separately.
And then she would be sending a letter to the donors when she receives the money. That's a tax deductible official
Right.
letter.
Yep, from the town.
Does that mean you're gonna keep track of all this?
I
Is
do it, I
somebody-
usually do a little spreadsheet. And then what I do is I would send to you or the committee, whatever, the names as the donations come in. And I usually just do a total, so I'm not making public what individual donations are, as you go along.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next step would be, when do we get the RFP out there? And I guess my question for you folks is, do we wait until we've actually collected enough? The advice from Revision is, since the landscape of solar installation is crazy, get it out. When they get back to you, they usually have a guarantee of 30 days of the price they've quoted, and therefore you have there's still some time to collect all the money, and of course, we don't have to do anything if those pledges don't turn into actual
Right.
money.
Well, my suggestion would be, unless David or Ben object, or Dina, that we have you get that RFP out. It should probably float by town council to make
It-
sure it's,
It has.
oh, it has.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
we
there's
have-
some, it went there's some changes that will work out that. And then we usually send it out of our office. You know, it goes in the paper, it goes on the listserv. But we'll have to work out, we have to have a contact person, because our office is, we don't know enough about it, so it needs to be whoever these bidders can call
Okay.
with questions.
Yep.
But we can work out all that, at least this was what we've done in the past. And then my only question was, are you gonna have a clerk of the works? And if you are you paying them? And if you're paying them, make sure you include that in your,
So there's no
Monetary stuff.
they on this side of
it's you.
That was one of my
It's you.
questions. Are you going to require a clerk on the works, and then how does that work? Because when we actually, so it strikes me that the next set of questions is, what's the criteria? Who gets to decide what the criteria is? Who makes the final decision? Who's on the committee to evaluate all these bids? When do we get, if we get Aaron involved, how much does he get involved? There's just a lot of details, as you can imagine. We also have to have some connection to Eversource, because we're
Yeah.
going to ask for group net metering so that we
Right.
can use the excess.
I think the connection
Right.
to Eversource goes through the office here.
Yeah,
I think a lot of those other decisions should be from the Energy Committee, who is the one who proposed the solar and who probably has the most knowledge about the solar. And your solar company certainly has pretty good reputation, and I'm not sure that every installation they do has a clerk of the works, but you could certainly ask them what they do. I don't think the town is prepared to hire a clerk of the works.
I just have the size of this is based on the size of the roof, and you're planning to sell excess energy.
Yeah, the excess energy would help cover the garage, maybe the academy building, under group net metering, whatever else the town is paying for in terms of
Right.
electricity, we can use that excess.
That's what
to
we do
cover that.
here. It pays for our electricity and any extra goes to the highway, which, by the way, there's not been any extra. We use it all. Yeah, I mean, some months our bill is $20, some months our bill is 200, it just depends.
Well, it's a good time to do it.
Yeah,
Bill's just doubled, so.
Yes.
it is a great thing to do. I think you should get the kinks in the RFP worked out, and
Yep.
we can do that, and we'll do that with the town council, because they know more than any of us about that. And then at least get the RFP, think about getting that out, within the next couple weeks, at least.
And we always, and I'm sure Dina will make sure this is on there, but to answer one of your questions, we always include a phrase that says that the contract will be awarded not to the effect of necessarily to the lowest bidder. We have the option to choose,
Yes,
and that needs to be made clear, otherwise you are,
Call it the lowest bidder.
yeah, and it might not be what you want.
right, but also through town council and past stuff that I can pull out, we can talk about the clerk of the work thing. And I know that for the fire station, there was one, of course, that was a much larger monetary project,
Do you remember whether there was one for this?
but it was a donation, it was yes, there was for this, yeah, for this
Just
building.
For the
Yeah.
building, but for
Yeah.
the solar,
No, for the
Dina?
Oh, for the solar, there was
I
not.
think Mark just.
Mark Bollinger was the clerk of the works for that.
Yeah.
Because he's so not, I was gonna say, have we, maybe, I know we're recording this, but we should ask him.
Yeah,
He's on vacation this week.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so, yeah, well, we have a couple weeks, we can work it on.
That's what you get.
Does
for
everybody
not
feel
showing
okay
up.
with that?
And I guess the only other question, but there are lots of questions that will come, but how much are we obliged to share, do you wanna share with the town? I mean, it strikes me that an announcement in the listserv thanking all these people, not by name necessarily, but that we're gonna move ahead, is appropriate. And we can put an announcement on the Energy Committee's website.
I think both.
Other places, or those two normal?
Yeah,
where you
that's
do a lot of
usually,
your
That's-
announcements.
just to announce the project, yeah.
Yeah,
The listserv and the webpage, yeah.
I think that's good, if you know of other things. I think I've been missing the church newsletter for a while now. It used to be that was another place that got sent out to.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
that, I can't think of anything else, so those are probably the two best places.
The Energy
So-
Committee's meeting next Thursday. I'm sorry.
Can you?
No, there isn't a new, have you heard of Daybreak?
Yes,
Yeah, that might
but
be a good
that's
place.
Valley, that's not Lyme.
No, it's Upper
Upper
Valley.
Valley.
That's getting the word out. Wouldn't hurt.
Not sure, but, yeah. Go ahead.
The committee will meet on Thursday and next Thursday and work out a lot of the things that we have in our little box, including the criteria for the bid. We've had some helpful input, Karen was one, on experience with solar installation and things we need to look at moving forward. Do you want me to simply say to Dina, this is what we've come up with, and she'll take care of giving it to you? Do you want me to, I mean, David is our representative, he can communicate with the select board. I don't wanna, I mean, we have to have the criteria in
Right.
there
Yes.
before we put out the RFP.
Right.
And so
Right.
there just seems
So
to
if
me.
you know what that is, I would suggest you send it to both David and Dina. But we are coming up into the August vacation season. We won't be meeting again until August 4th.
Right.
And then not for another 2 weeks, so you'll wanna work on that. I know you need to do it at next Thursday's meeting, but if you resolve issues then, shoot something off to Dina that Friday morning.
Yeah, and I think as long as, if it's part of the RFP, that what it is? You're talking about criteria in there, and as long as town council is okay with it, and David's gonna read it, so I don't think it has to come back to the board for a vote.
No, I don't think,
Yeah.
you've got approval to go forward. I mean, if you were going forward and town council was saying, hey, wait a minute, then we would have an issue, but basically.
And thinking ahead, because we are getting into August, in terms of choosing the final bid, people on the committee, I'm
I
hoping
think
that
the
David.
committee should give a recommendation to the board. The board has
Okay.
to approve it, but
Yep.
you've done all the work, you've looked at all the alternatives. I think it's the committee who makes the recommendation.
And I can go over how you do all the bidding thing and the town requirements for a fair way to do it and all that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Good work.
Thank you.
Yes,
Nice.
it's exciting.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Okay, so we'll now move into some of the nitty-gritty. We have a 10 o'clock appointment. And let's look at the June 30th regular meeting minutes. What do we wish to do with the minutes?
Subject to the couple of typos that I sent to Tina, I would move them.
I'll second.
Okay, and as you just noted, there were just a couple of typos that you caught, and those we do not usually worry about in terms of revisiting and rereading everything. So, all those in favor of the June 30th minutes, say aye.
And
David, I.
Judy, aye. They are approved. Thank you both for looking at them, suggestions, and as I just mentioned, so people are aware of it, we will not be, after today, we will not have another select board meeting until Thursday, August 4th.
By the way, I will be out on the 4th. I'm out the last week of July and the first week of August. I have to go to California.
Okay,
So, I
Okay.
don't know if that affects our plans, if you guys want to just,
we'll have to think about that. Yeah, 'cause
Well,
then-
it's simple, anything that you're worried about, we're gonna pass.
I'll make a list of stuff that he doesn't, agree with. You guys can address it.
The very first year that I was on the select board, many years ago, when it met in the basement of the library, I think I've told this story 1,000 times. I had to be out one meeting, and I came back for the next meeting, and the chairman of the board gleefully told me that they had rescinded the septic regulations for the town in my absence. So, I don't
well, feel
think,
free.
I don't think that Ben and I are gonna do that to you, but you never know. We had a manifest sent to us. I hope you guys had a chance to look at that. And what do we wish to do
I'll
with it?
move it.
I'll second. Fine.
Any questions?
Not for me.
None? I had none either. All those in favor say aye.
And
David, I.
Judy, aye. It is approved, Dina.
Thank you.
You
If you
are
wanna
welcome.
send it around, we can sign it now if you want.
I don't have it sitting here, I was just looking for it, it's one of the things that's not the manifest.
This is the manifest, but it's not the original. Do you want us to sign it or not?
Yeah, that's not really that's just a,
Printout.
yeah,
A fake
not the right one.
manifest.
just has the list of checks.
Okay,
I'll get it though,
all right,
before we
thanks.
leave.
Okay, next is the PA 28 form. I asked Dina to put in the agenda what that was exactly. It was an inventory of taxable property for 2023. An annual form to determine whether the municipality will be using the PA 28 form.
Right, and I checked, you will not, because you haven't used it for 22 years that I know of. But you can certainly use it if you want. It's a mailing that goes out to every single property owner in town, and they, have to list on it if they've done anything to their property, if anything's changed,
And that goes back to the state,
and then it comes back to us.
to us.
Yes.
So it's typically, if we think everybody in town is cheating, we can send this out and
Well, typically, if everyone in town is cheating, you're probably not gonna
not
get
gonna
any
get any
responses
responses.
back. That's right.
You probably won't this year.
You don't get a very, I think the last time they did it, that was part of the reason why they stopped. Like I said, it was years ago,
Yeah,
is because people don't, it's a big administrative thing, it's a big money thing, and then you get nothing back, or you get 10
it
back.
costs us to
or-
mail it out and to pay
Yes,
to have it sent
that's right.
back.
That's right.
What do we wish to do with the PA 28 inventory of taxable property form?
Just what we've been doing for quite a lot of years.
Okay, Ben says no, David says no, Judy says no. It's a no-go.
Thank you.
And okay, here's my shooting skills. Look at that. I've been practicing. Yay. 28. We have a request from the Lyme Highway Department
It's already been.
looks like the Highway Department wants to have repairs made to a dump truck. Dina, would you like to give us a little extra
Sure.
info on that?
The highway department needs to have sandblasting and painting done on, the vehicle, one of the big trucks. I'm trying to look and see what number it is, but it doesn't say. So this was something actually that had been planned, if I remember correctly, more than 2 years ago, but hadn't gotten done, so the guy can do it, and Scott is requesting, that this be done.
Okay.
It's just maintenance, like you deal with rust and repaint.
Yeah, they sandblast it and take all the rust out and repaint it, prime it.
Do you wanna see? I have it here.
I saw that, you
Yeah,
sent it.
send it to
Yeah, I
us.
sent that.
It's one of those things that you only know what it says if you know what it says.
All right, it's just over 5,000, so Scott
It's,
wanted you guys to vote.
7,000, yep.
Right, cause his
All right,
limit is
I'll move
5.
it.
I'll second.
Okay, Ben and David, all those in favor say aye.
David, aye.
Yeah.
Judy, aye, and that is approved. You are welcome. Jordan again.
No, that's not, no, that's the check register. I know. It's in my office.
Oh, okay, okay.
Please, thank you.
Yes, yes. I think somebody just drove in, I don't know if it's Sean's person.
No, that's W.B. Mason.
Oh,
He went that way with Jordan.
okay.
That's you.
So, we have an item on the agenda, which is donation of benches and chairs for the common from the Lyme Foundation. And I don't know if anybody recalls, probably not, but we really kind of made a decision a few meetings ago that we have a first item that we need to take care of, which is the backside of the common, before we start doing any kind of common things. And we certainly appreciate the thought that's gone on here and the donations, but we're gonna put them on hold for a little bit longer, if that's okay. It's kind of silly to load up the common with stuff and then have it not be right, and have to move it and whatever else. We're gonna have a discussion later this morning in about 15 or 20 minutes about some of the issues on the back side of the common. And while I'm on that, it also should be noted that we're probably not going to be able to go forward with the undergrounding, which was really putting everything on hold. It's not turning out to be
I spoke to the gentleman from the Lyme Foundation, and my understanding was that his inquiry related not exclusively to the common, but also to some other Lyme-owned properties. I think they were thinking about adding some equipment or some, to the pond, to Post Pond or to the beach. That, I didn't get, I don't know, Tina, maybe you spoke to him, but I sort of directed him your way, Judy, but I don't know if he's managed to reach out to you. But my sense was what he was really asking was, you know, if we want to do stuff that relates to town property, can you explain to me what it is, what the process will look like for us? What do we need to do? If we want to buy a kiosk, or we want to buy a float for the, you know, a platform for Post Pond, or any of those kind of items, how do we present that to the board, and how do we move forward with it?
Well, I think I sent
Thank
you
you,
back an
David.
email telling you to, or asking you to tell him to send something to the board in writing.
Yeah,
Because,
but I don't think they weren't at that stage yet. I don't think they hadn't finalized it. I think what he was asking is, can you just
How
generally
does it
describe the
work?
process for me, so we know how to do it? What
I
the
actually
steps are.
have sent them the gift and donation policy that explains it all before. I'm happy to send it to Matt
Yeah, no,
so that he has it. It could be that he was not the president at the time, sorry
I
about
think,
this.
I think that might be good if
But
you could do
I'll
that.
send it to him and then he can, you know, it gives
Have it.
clear direction.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I think Karen had a question.
Well, it was just a happy reflection that decisions are being considered for the use of the common in kind of a higher level, not just, do we buy this, do we buy that, do we make this, do we make that, but just the notion, and I didn't see it in any of the committee work that may have been stopped because of COVID, is there kind of a mission statement? Because when you have something like that, it's really easy to look at an idea and say, does it support or advance our mission, or not, yes or no? And it would be really great to let that committee loose again, or, you know, through some other body that reports to the board. What is our mission for the common? It sounds like a really trite and stupid idea to some, but I think by knowing why we have the common and what purpose it fills in the lives of our people here in town will help us make these choices when lovely gifts come our way.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, thank you also for some very nice work on the lilac trees on the common.
My pleasure. It was selfish pleasure, Judy.
We look
Thank you.
forward to many blooms next spring.
Next spring is right, thank you.
So, okay, we're gonna back burner, I've got an old boss who used to say that, let's go on the back burner. And we will come up with that at a later date, and I really don't know how to do this. Let's turn it way down, now you're going to reverse. Repair and maintenance of the school Little Town Common fence. I needed to bring this to the board, they weren't aware that I did anything with this, I surprised Dina with it as well, which made me not terribly popular. And I met with the new principal, the acting superintendent, the head of maintenance, a member of the Heritage Commission at the fence. It's my understanding the Heritage Commission donated the fence a number of years ago. And over at least the last winter, or the last 2 winters where we've had a lot of snow, by nobody's intent, the slats and the holders for the slats keep getting broken. And the Heritage Commission has been repairing it. I think constant repairs have kind of become a bit of drudgery. And so we're trying to look at ways that between the town, who owns the Little Common, and the school, can try and maintain both snow removal and fence integrity. The best, and we had several ideas, the best idea I could come up with, and I think I got somewhat of a nod from folks, is, and Dina will have some more information here in a minute, but a snow fence, that very attractive orange snow fence that gets put up, but it does stop the snow if it's like a foot or 2 feet in front of the actual granite posts with the plastic slats, so that it doesn't build up onto them, or a truck doesn't back into them, or the bucket loader doesn't clip them, all of which seem to have been occurring, and if you drive by the school, you'll see a pile of them on the ground that broke in the last year or two. So, I don't know, I'm gonna let Dina talk a little, and then Ben and David will chime in on what seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Well, what I did was found many meetings that this topic was discussed between the Heritage Commission and the Select Board. But when it comes down to it, snow removal was one of the big topics, and the school was to be communicated with, and or highway, because they were doing some too, that they could no longer pile snow there. But, you know, that's really all that I found, and that, yes, it was approved to put the fence in the Heritage Commission, and that they were gonna maintain it. So, those are the facts out of 10 different meetings that I found.
Oh, sure,
So-
not that many.
So Judy, it would seem to me that if they put slats in the fence that could be removed in the fall,
Yeah,
because I've seen staff members hit those in the winter. So it's not necessarily the maintenance people,
Yeah, I
but,
wasn't trying to
I mean,
blame on any one group.
right,
It's
but
a
I know other
collection.
people have tried to do that, so I just wanna be clear that I've seen
Okay.
other
but
things
removable
occur.
ones, what a great idea.
And then they could push the snow
Yeah.
through there and
Yeah,
it's out of the way.
yeah.
You know, they don't use the other side of that fence for anything.
No, they're not, there's no parking on the common, so they're not
Yeah.
allowed to park over there, and there is a right of way that needs to be kind of, not obstructed.
True,
So,
but
well,
we are not
that's
responsible for that right away.
true, I understand, we don't plow it.
We do not plow that
I
right.
do not have
But
we
I'm not
probably
saying
shouldn't
that the snow's gotta be put in the right of way.
Pile the snow on the right of way was probably
You know,
not
but we've gotta,
kosher.
there's not many places for them to put the snow, and really the little tractor that the school has
Well, I
is
know
not
that
capable of moving snow
last year
in
with
big
the heavy snowfall, the
volumes.
town did, the highway guys did go in with, I think, their bucket loader and a dump truck, and they removed the snow, which was really nice. And I do like to see the cooperative effort between the town and the school.
Yeah, they always do that for the school and the library.
Yeah, here's my technical ability. Right now, there are plastic holders that go in, they're about this big, and they screw into the granite posts,
Mhm.
and the boards have some flexing in them, and so they can snap in,
Mhm.
and then they straighten, and they're built, actually it's horse fencing, so that when the horse pushes against it, it flexes and they pop out. But what has happened is, they may have popped out and not broken, so when they got repaired, somebody screwed them in tightly through the bracket this way, so there's no longer any flexing. Now, maybe there's a different bracket that could go in that maybe just holds on the bottom and you could slip them up.
Yeah,
As an
there's probably,
alternative,
you
it-
just use like a horseshoe
Yeah,
and it
Yep.
just, they just
the
slide.
one they have
in.
now actually is like this.
Right,
and
you know, I mean,
It really.
plastic is fragile at 30 below zero.
Well, that's called
And that's
that,
true
yeah.
too, but if it
So-
doesn't get a bump from whatever source, it's probably not gonna break.
Form follow assumption, why is a fence needed?
Oh.
A
Why is
fence-
one needed at all?
One is wanted and needed to delineate that line, which we were beginning to have parking, we were beginning to have overflow, it was getting muddy. The
Killing
roots
trees.
of the trees were being compacted.
Okay, so slippery slope,
Yeah,
protecting the little common.
and make a delineation for the school, that they could clearly figure out, here's our property and we take care of this. So,
We've got these, whatever they are, bumpers on the end of our
Yeah.
parking area here. Were those set out so a car couldn't bump into that fence?
Well, the problem is that the plows are gonna rip them up.
Yeah, it's not gonna
I mean,
It's
that's,
They don't
gonna
rip
be
them up
just like
here.
here.
oh, Matt
You guys
does.
ask them permission
Beg to differ.
to see if there's an alternative to pop them out.
yeah,
And
let
they
me,
could at
let
least
me
look
get
at
back
it.
to the person that contacted me and see if that's something. I think we've got, a maintenance person at the school and the heritage person, contact person, and have them
They can
check
join
it out.
together.
I didn't get the feeling from either the principal or the superintendent that it particularly mattered to them what resolution there was, just that there would be one that it didn't continue to be an issue. So, yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I will,
Yeah, I'm sure Doug will have plenty of ideas to help.
yes. Okay, let me just quick make this note so that I don't forget, because I'm pretty forgetful these days. Girl. Okay, so that's a, like, you call that a horseshoe or a pop-out bracket?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Ben and David, you okay with that? And if we can't get it done this year, we could maybe put some orange fencing up for temporary and get a better resolution? Okay. All right, I think, Sean, have we seen your guest? Not yet?
No, unless he's on my side. No, not yet. He'll be here in a minute, too.
You could do these, common things.
Ah,
There's two common things and a Lyme Center Academy thing.
on here, yes.
They're not on that agenda.
I don't see them. That's my mistake.
Sorry.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
we have requests for use of the common. They were submitted in a timely manner, and they have the approval of the chief of police for their parking plan. One event is August 6th, which is a Saturday. The other event is,
September 24th.
yes, September 24th. September 24th is the Health and Wellness Fair. August 6th is sponsored by Community Care. Bapan will be having some food service using the church kitchen as a fundraiser. So.
For CCL.
For CCL,
Right.
yes, thank you. Okay. What do we wish to do with these from CCL, two requests?
I'll move them.
I'll second.
Okay, and David, and all those in favor,
Then I,
David, I.
and Judy, aye. So August 6th, and Dina, I don't right off have the date of that other one, it's in September.
August 6th and September 24th.
Okay, thank you. That's approved.
Isn't August sixth the day Dartmouth is doing that replacement commencement thing?
Oh,
Um,
I don't remember, I read it
not
this
on
morning.
Mercury.
Yes. And we also have Dina,
The Lyme Center Academy building?
yes,
Yep, this is
it's
the,
the 24th as well.
right, September 24th, and they've done this before. This is the Heritage Commission for the Center for Painted Wall Preservation. They met there last year. The reason why it's coming to you guys is because they have asked that the fee and the deposit be waived for this informational use of the upstairs hall.
Informational, educational,
Who's requesting again, Gina?
CCO,
It's through, no, this
No.
is through the Heritage Commission.
Is it?
um,
That
yes,
was my
Lyme
understanding.
historians. I think it's the Lyme historians,
I don't think it's the historians, I think
Says
it's the
right here.
Heritage Commission.
sponsor Lyme historians.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, well, what's the difference? They're the same, no, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Lori's ready to beat me up.
Watch out.
Okay, so yes, that, and again, they did this last year, you allowed them to, I don't remember if it was, if the fee was waived or not, but
Okay, what do we wish to do? Waive fees, approve use, both?
I mean, they're not asking for any money, it's not a for-profit thing, and it's,
You don't charge
Town
for
group.
anyone to attend it,
they're not, no.
okay?
Yeah, sure.
You're okay? Ben?
Yeah.
You wanna move it? I'm okay with it,
I'll move it.
okay?
I'll second.
And all those in favor say aye,
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
that's approved.
David, aye.
Thank you, Judy, aye. Okay, those.
We didn't
are-
tear the place up last year,
No, there, I don't think there was
Point of correction,
any
I think it got
damage.
canceled last year, actually.
Or the year before.
Or the.
I know they
before,
have done
sure.
it, they have done it at least once.
Okay.
It's the same day as that thing, okay, interesting.
Okay,
Um,
so,
And then if the guy's not here, I do have one thing that I didn't put on.
okay, I had one thing, you had one thing, go for it, Dina.
I would like, permission to change, no, I would like permission to have our BMSI program, our software program, upgraded. This is generally a, I think it's $2,300 or between that and $3,000, depending on how many lots and how big your town is. But this is a new program for them. It's software that is not out there actively being used other than by people within BMSI. So our alternative is to stay with this old program that we have, that, it works, but it doesn't work as well as it should with vision and bridging and all this stuff. So, BMSI is Business Management Services, it's our software, financial software. It's for the tax program, it's for our revenues, our expenses, all that. This is just the tax software though. So, I'm recommending for, and I've talked to the tax collector and the deputy tax collector. So we would be the first ones to use this program. I was nervous about that, that's the one thing that makes me nervous, is because, we're kind of guinea pigs.
You're the
But-
beta tester.
We're getting it for no charge. So, and BMSI, I've talked at great lengths with them. They have one person who is assigned to this. And as I said to him yesterday, you'll be at our beck and call and our fingertips, and he laughed and said, of course I will. So, anyways, I don't really know we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We can say no and stay with the old program for another year and see how this one tests out, but,
You don't have support of it.
yeah, oh yeah, oh, we always,
My
yes,
understanding is
absolutely.
that the older program has been older for a while and
Yes, it has.
it's
It's time for it.
somewhat problematic, so,
Well,
as long as we really have assurance that we will have some good support.
Right.
My thought on it is we should try it and see where we go
Yeah.
and use that support.
well, and with this new vision program, the new software will just work better with it. And it's all web-based and, all that great stuff.
So your recommendation, based on discussions with the tax collector and treasurer and folks who are impacted by this, is that you go forward with it?
Yes, and my discussions with BMSI, yes. It might be a little hairy scary for a while, but
I can see. My brain is impacted, but not my eyes. It's Karen.
Thank you. I guess I'm wondering, our tax collector probably works some really off hours, not 9 to 5, and will there be support regardless of when she calls? And that's one question. And then the other question is, what are the benefits to the town? Not just the financial benefits, but why will this version be better than what we have? What will it do for us that the current system is not doing?
well, number one, it's web-based, which has all kinds of different benefits having
Which
to
would
do
allow the
with.
individual to work from off-site?
Well, yeah, but that's not even really one of the pluses, I don't think, for us. More for us is all the updates and things that as you go along and you have these quick little things that they write and come out with that you have to update that program with,
Yeah.
can be done by BMSI. We don't have to call our IT guy, have him come in here, meet with us, get on the shared server, you know,
Or
all this.
streamline interface?
Yeah, it'll save a lot of time and efficiency that way. The program itself, how it tracks things, it's much more detailed, and it will work better with the upgrade in Vision, which is our assessing software that we just had
So
this
they're
year.
gonna talk better to each
So
other.
they will talk better to each other, yes.
Gina has recommended this. What do we wish to do with it?
I'll move it.
One second.
Okay. I did see another hand. Is there a,
Yes, it's not material, would it be possible to roll back if if this turned out to be a real stinker and it was just not working out? Would it be possible to?
No.
probably not.
Okay, I mean,
No.
that's just an
No,
acknowledged risk.
we would just need to work with them to
Right.
work out the kinks and.
And if the
But
vendor.
they've been testing it too, I can't imagine, you
Mhm.
know, there may be some things that,
Yeah, right.
Some
Well,
frustration.
Yeah.
And it sounds very much as if you've got the assurance that you've got somebody that's gonna be
that's right.
caught,
We've been
that
looking
has
for,
your back.
we've been
Yeah.
looking for several years.
Yeah, okay,
More than
good.
several years for
Thank you.
alternatives. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
David, aye.
Judy, aye. I didn't get who
Thank you.
moved it.
David moved
David.
it, Ben seconded.
Thank you. And that's approved.
Thank you.
You are welcome, welcome. We have several non-public things to do, but I'm gonna recommend we take a brief break. I know that we have some other items on the agenda. I'm
Right.
hoping that our,
Should we do this thing from,
The letter,
oh, the
Come on,
fire,
yeah.
the fire thing? Yeah, let's do that.
here's the
Never mind the break,
fire
I take
thing,
it back.
and you have the letter to Mr. the 91A.
Yes, yes, right. Yep.
do you know what it is that they're asking for, Gina? Do we know
It's written in that teeny little box.
ATV, or, so that's all?
That's, I asked for more detail, but I was not given any, so.
Oh, you presented that one.
Yeah,
So,
so this isn't for a specific piece of equipment, this is to sort of get into the program, and we already approved it, so. we-
No, that's for a specific piece of
we
equipment.
did already approve their ability to apply for things. The only concern I had on this, and it is for a specific, this ATV or UTV, which would allow them.
But it hasn't been identified.
Correct.
Right.
But here are the conditions if they apply in this program for what the town is being committed to. So that's the concern.
This is to apply for surplus equipment for the forest fire program.
This,
What kind of equipment?
Like an
Well, They
ATV.
want a UTV, it's free, but then again, you have to maintain it, everything's not quite so free.
nothing is ever free.
Nothing, there's no such thing.
But they want it geared up and ready to go for a forest fire.
and they're
Makes sense.
Or also search and rescue.
search and
Yeah.
rescue,
Right.
yep.
And all those things are happening more and more all the time.
Mhm.
Well, and they're still kind of in flux because they wanna apply for this because they have to, those people, those federal people, go out and search for it. They don't have it right there. And in the meantime, they're working on another plan that if that one comes through, then they wouldn't take that. And so,
Plan A, maybe.
Right,
So
right.
if we feel like we can comply with the conditions, I have a signature page.
Yeah, sure. The insurance lines up, I assume, Peter. They have specific amounts for insurance, and that is
Correct.
consistent with what our policy would be.
I would have to call and add that to our policy, yes.
Okay, but the amounts are not, they seem
No.
pretty on the
Yeah.
low side.
Standard, I think they're below, right.
Oh, wow, it's happy, it's Bastille Day.
So, do you need a motion for that or no? Or yes?
Do you want a motion for that?
Just to be
I'll
safe.
move.
I'll move it.
Ben will
I'll
move
second
it, David will second it.
Probably should have done that before I
I
signed it.
probably, all those in favor say aye.
Then I,
David, aye.
Judy, aye.
They come with helmets?
Yeah. They better already have helmets.
What's holding up our meeting about the com?
Waiting for the
Sorry.
fellow from the state.
Pardon me?
Waiting for the fellow from the state.
Thank you.
The
Because I
fellow,
have to leave in a few minutes. That would be annoying.
sorry, I can't help that. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, the next item that we will take, while we wait, we have, we the board have looked at a response put together by Dina to go out to the individual who requested a 91A Freedom of Information Act on, information about Grafton County Register of Deeds, the assessor's information. There were a list of 4 items, and we do have a response to it. And rather than take it up as a debate issue, if you folks have looked at it and you're comfortable with it, take a motion in a second and we can approve it being sent back to the individual.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
David, aye.
Then I,
And Judy, aye. So this response is approved. It will go out, I believe, tomorrow morning, if not earlier. Thank you, Dina, for that work on that.
Thank you, guys.
And now, Earl, I'm sorry, we can't control.
Well, no, it's just
I know it's frustrating.
frustrating because I have to be out of here in a few minutes.
Well, I tell you what, would you like to tell us what your thoughts are?
I can summarize them.
Okay.
Number one, I think the whole project is very disrespectful or whatever, that this subject was brought up of trading the road to the state without any consultation with the citizens of the town. And I find that disrespectful, and I don't know if it fits in with the right to know laws, but I am going to check that out.
Okay.
I believe that, my other statement is, I had checked with the state a couple of years ago, and they cared less whether we parked on that road or not. I brought that to the selectmen, and the selectmen rejected the whole idea of accepting the fact that we could park on the common without further ado. They did not want us to park on Route 10 over by the store, but on the backside of the common, they had no objection for us to park as long as we kept an emergency lane. So I think that going on further without due respect to the town is unconscionable, and I am just very annoyed with it. I do not. The other point I'd like to bring out is this road is one way coming from the skiway down. People from the Route 10 from Orford have to go by the horse sheds, and they have to miss the people coming from the Route 10 around. There's a bad corner. They continue beyond the horse sheds, and now they're going to encounter the people coming down from the skiway, which is another dangerous spot. So making this a one-way road going from the skiway down opens us up to some very dangerous intersections. Also, whenever you're planning on parking, you want to keep an idea on plowing, because at the state and even the town now has removed the snow over to the common. If we don't, it would be objectionable or be unfortunate if the plow snow would end up on my front yard. I guess that's about all I got.
Okay, okay.
But thank you for the opportunity to get that off my shrinking chest.
Thank you,
The
Earl.
rest of it was shrinking.
Very good. Thank you very much.
So thank you, so if I have to
You're wel-
leave, you know my,
We know what you came
Yeah.
to say, and we appreciate your being, sharing with us your thoughts. And we are just waiting for this fellow from the state to come. Sue,
If ever a place called for a traffic circle, that corner does.
the one by the
By the
inn
inn.
and
By
the
Lyme.
church, and
I spoke with Jack Elliott, that would be the solution, is the traffic circle, that location.
my husband would shoot me in 1,000
Oh, I know,
ways.
everybody hates them.
But they work.
Yeah.
So where would that be, right?
By the
Right by-
inn and the
Right
church.
in front of the church, where all those cars can come in from all kinds of.
But not, it would not, cars going down 10 would have to go through it too, or?
No,
No, just up.
but the state would have to prove that. Yeah, Hanover did theirs on the portion of the state road that Hanover has as a part of their, I can't remember the formal name of it, but the town takes over that
But
part
you've
of the
got
road.
5 entries into
Yeah.
that area,
Yeah,
and no, you know, it's catch as catch
So it's where
can.
Market Street comes down and
Market
Dorchester.
Street and the horseshoes.
It was
in
similar to
there.
the other end of the green, which now has a divider coming from East Step. That used to be a problem area. Straight down. the
Still
state.
is.
Well, it's better.
It's worse.
It's better, but it still is.
Judy?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Given that we don't know if we're gonna continue along or not without
Okay,
our DOT representative, I'd like to have the opportunity to just respond
okay.
to Earl's comments while there are people here that are clearly here.
Well, yeah,
For
well,
this purpose?
let's just, I guess we can begin, at least we'll hear from you, Sean, and then we'll discuss, and then
Okay.
whatever, go ahead, you have the floor.
Okay, so I know that Earl spoke with the DOT representative a few years ago, and what Earl brought back to the board and to the committee was that the state did not care about people parking on the backside of the common. However, when I talked to that very same individual later that same day, DOT cannot regulate laws of the state. So whether they said they didn't care that cars parked there or not really has no value whatsoever, because they can't tell the police not to enforce laws. Not in any way, shape, or form, it cannot happen. DOT in the past has sort of not been too worried, except if they have to tow a car in the middle of the night, which we have done, plowing. So I want that known, that they can't just say, and I wish our DOT rep was here at this point, because he would probably confirm. Is he walking in right now? Okay, well, I'll stop then.
Yep.
Getting out. Yeah, I will say one other thing that really peeves me, and I think it's a very selfish point that Earl made, that there are only the people on the backside of the common who don't get snow pushed in their driveways. Everybody else in this town gets it thrown in their driveways. I think it's just selfish, Earl.
Okay, here they
Good.
come.
Judy, did you wanna take that break now?
Well, we could, except I think they are about 1 minute out.
Right, but I mean, they're.
Yeah, I don't know if they're
taking
gonna
shoes
set
off.
any, I don't think they're setting anything up, but I don't know what they're carrying around.
You guys down there?
I'll wait for you up here.
Oh, at the,
Down there.
Thought it'd be an on-site thing.
oh,
I
no,
apologize. How you doing?
Come on in. We have some seats for you. Welcome. John, would you like to intro or do you?
So, the far with the little lighter beard is Doug King, and the darker beard is Chris Turgeon. They're both from DOT out of the Lebanon office, and they are here at my request. And my request to them was, should the town and the board decide to move forward with any sort of project on the backside of the common, it would be nice to know what DOT, number one, regulations are in construction of whatever we do, given that on the common intersects with both of their roads, given Dorchester Road and Route 10, Dartmouth College Highway. And also to assist us and give us some guidance into how we would turn that road into a one-way safer place with parking, all of the above items that we discussed in the public hearing a year and a half ago, or at least. So given that, I will, I'll turn it over to Chris, and we can see what he has to say.
Yep, please.
So it's all gonna be based on what the intent is, or what the goal of the town is gonna be. So if, like, for instance, if the parking's gonna be on the common side or the other side, the way it is now, it makes sense to have it one way coming in off Dorchester and exiting Route 10. I'm assuming to plow it the normal way and have a right wing on it, so they'll be able to push the snow off onto the common side. But then again, I don't know if parking would be restricted during, I assume it would be during winter maintenance season type stuff, but, as it is now, the exit, what I'd call the exit towards 10, I mean, it's pretty perpendicular, so if anything, you would just wanna restrict that traffic coming northbound, most likely to try to merge onto that, so you basically wanna neck it down.
So you wanna, right, sort of across from the school, you wanna make that smaller.
However I would assume you just keep, again, depending on where that parking comes, how far it goes towards 10, but you basically wanna make the geometry, you want it to match what you want to happen. So if you want it one way, exit only, then if there's a car there, there should be no way for another car to be able to squeeze by them to go, to go the wrong way.
Okay.
So, in the same way with on the Dorchester Road side, but that's the entrance, so hopefully if you're restricting the access off 10, but then you'll have the people that are on that section of road, when they go to leave, they have to take a left-hand turn instead of a right, so. But that, I don't know if you can, other than with signage and, behavior training on that, I don't know how much you can control that one.
One thing that one of our members just brought up was traffic circle roundabout at the Lyme end,
Okay, yeah.
off of Dorchester Road. I mean, I don't know, it seems to me that might be very pricey.
They are. a lot of the times the roundabouts come down to how much right-of-way you have. So if you can fit it within the right-of-way, then that's one hurdle that you've overcome. But the other thing is, they're not very truck-friendly. So that's the other thing you gotta think about, like, if you look at the ones in the north, the one on the north end of Hanover, by Kendall, that is wheel rutted. I mean, obviously it was made for trucks to drive over the apron in the middle, at least the trailer part of it. And it receives a lot of wear and tear. So there's pros and cons to it. It would have to be, evaluated to find out if it would be a better alternative. I'm not sure what's the name of that town road that goes to the right of the main?
Market Street.
Market Street, so I'm not sure what the traffic volumes are, but again, that's another part of looking at if it's the right tool for the job.
So the town owns the back of the common road now,
Yes.
and if the town were to wanna do something there, one, we would contact DOT because we're gonna come on to state roads.
We appreciate that, thank you.
Two, I know that Sean thinks the way that you just suggested, which is one way from like the Lyme and church and down and onto Route 10 by the school. If we decided it made more sense to go the other way, would the state be able to support that, even though I know that intersection by the church and inn is complicated?
Yep. We don't have, the only thing that we care about is where, as Sean stated, where it connects to the state roads.
Okay.
And as long as if you're proposing geometry changes, that's the only part we're interested in, making sure that if you're gonna make big changes at Dorchester Road, that it's gonna work with
Yeah.
the town, or with our state road, but also the town would wanna make sure it works with the town roads too.
Yeah, okay.
We don't have a preference on which way the other. I mean, that was just the kind of our opinion that we're offering. If it was if you're gonna plow it the typical way, if you've got trucks with right side wings already, you're gonna
Right.
wanna do it with the left wing,
Then
or
you
you're gonna
need
plow
to
it the opposite direction.
Go against the opposite
Right.
direction, which is what they believe do now.
Right, I think we actually used to do that too.
And yes, yeah, you did, that was very nice of you. I was just suggesting that, not suggesting, asking about it, because right now, the folks that live there all park on the side of the road where their property is. And so they would then be having to come in a way that they weren't used to, and they would be getting out onto the snowy side instead of on the road side if they were coming in, unless they came in the wrong way anyway.
Right, I would think regardless of the traffic pattern, that you would want the snow to go towards the common side anyway,
Yeah, that
so.
does make sense.
I mean, not all snowstorms happen in the middle of the night when there's no traffic, but,
Seems like they like to
yeah.
start about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, and is there any signage, considerations for signage?
No different than a stop sign for a regular intersection. I mean, if you're gonna have, do not enter, exit only, that would just be posted, perpendicular to your road, so people using 10 or North Dorchester Road would know.
So if it's on the town's road, we can just put the sign in,
Yep, as long as
the
it's.
state likes to
right.
know.
Yep.
And
We
then,
run that through our traffic bureau just to make sure that it's,
Yeah.
it's, MUTCD compliant and stuff.
Mhm.
Location's good.
Okay. David, Ben,
Not really nothing concerning the state center.
okay, Dina, any thoughts? Karen?
Hi, I'm just wondering what problem are we trying to solve by making this change?
We have talked about this for a number of years, and part of the problem is to get some additional parking, which increasingly becomes an issue. We would like, as a board, to see more use of the common, even though I know people think we're trying to restrict it, but we're not. But when you have 20 or 30 cars for a use that's on the common and there's no place to put them, you can't have the use on the common. So, and we know that people like to just drive by, stop their car, park in the travel lane and park on the common, have a picnic or have a conversation. We'd like to make it so that that's safe and really usable. and we believe that it is time to really look at more use on the common, better traffic flow on the backside, make it even safer for the people who want to walk or ride a bike or have a stroller on that part of that road.
The other suggestion I heard was it should be time constrained parking on the backside.
Yep, yep, we've talked about that too, no overnight
No
parking.
overnight parking and like 3-hour parking.
Mhm. So, and provide some parking once people get used to it, if they wanna walk across the common and go to Stella's or the tavern or the country store, because there's limited parking on the breakdown lane, which is what is now being parked on the north side, and no parking on the south side. So that's where we have come to. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lori Rich, and I live on Breckenridge Lane. I'd really prefer to see some better organization, committee work on this. I think it's the cart before, the horse before the cart. It just, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if you're thinking of parking for Stella's and the Latham Inn, I think that is an incredibly dangerous place to cross.
Okay.
I mean, I can't even imagine. You're encouraging people to park on the south side of the common to use the businesses, because that going through town, whichever, and Sean can't be there always to have people going whatever it is, 20 miles an hour through that stretch. People go, as we all know, too fast through that little, from the school to beyond the church. And I just think that's, at night,
I am not encouraging them to park there, I am allowing there to be overflow parking
well, I
when it
think
is
it's a
needed.
bad idea. So,
Okay, I got it, bad idea,
bad
thank you.
idea. What I would love to see is some group of people really looking at better use of the common and how to have parking when there are events. Because I just don't see a problem. We use the school during events, we use the common building business, at the back end, I can't remember what they call it.
By the end.
Yeah, by the end. To me, when I've gone to events on the common recently, there's been adequate parking. And yes, I am very able to park at the school or some place, and I consciously make sure that I park as far away so that other people who aren't able to walk as far as I, get better parking. But I just think the parking issue is just one piece of the use of the common.
That's acknowledged, and you weren't here earlier when we said that there are many more pieces to this, but we need to start somewhere, and this, to us, seemed like a good starting
And
point.
I would just say, I think it's the wrong place to start.
Got it, okay, thank you
So,
very
And I'll
much.
just say to you, Lori, that there was a common committee and they couldn't get it together,
Okay,
is
so,
where I'll leave that.
okay, so maybe there's a
We
group
do,
of people.
we do have a report from the Common Committee, and it was disbanded during the COVID lockdown, for want of a
Right,
better
right.
word. And they did file a report, they did have a number of very good suggestions, and at this point, we are not ready to re-up any committee right now.
Okay, well, I would just
But I
really hope that
appreciate
we do not.
Sean's support and now Lori is here. And this is really an opportunity for us to hear from the state and what we need to do if it is a selectman's decision to somewhat alter what happens on the road, on the backside of the common. Okay. But we appreciate that. Short?
Yes,
Okay.
very, very short. I just want to say that both Earl and I were on that comment committee, and I think our work was incomplete, partly because of COVID, partly because we were given a huge task in a very short time, which is why I very strongly support getting that, a committee going again, with the same reasons that Lori said. That's number one. Number two, I really respect the idea that the DOT is here, and I don't want to take time away from that, but just a question for the board, for the select board, kind of for those of us who are really interested in this. Has a decision made, I'm assuming a decision has not been made yet about this
correct.
parking plan / one-way. And do you have a timeline in mind of when?
Nope.
Okay.
We are beginning the discussions. We feel that something needs to be done. We wanted to hear from the state first.
Yes,
Sean's input is extremely important.
yes.
And this is step one, and we're glad to see who's here. We've talked about more public input.
Good.
And we're on our way for something, and maybe nothing, maybe a different change, I don't know.
Great.
We're in on the ground floor.
So so the final question would be, if there was a plan, do you have plans to bring it before the town? Whether it would be a
My
really
plan-
big publicized public meeting in the evening when more people can come, maybe as far as coming, as I've had it suggested to me, it should be decided by the town meeting. This is something that affects not just those of us, our numbers are dwindling, who live on the backside.
I understand.
It affects everyone in town, and I can say a lot more about that, but I think out of respect for our guests, I won't right
Yeah,
now.
that's sufficient.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
One comment before I fly away. If the group agreed that one-way traffic on I Road makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
if the one-way was from the bottom side, whatever you wanna call it, up toward the inn,
Mm-hmm.
that would alleviate some of the traffic problems up at that corner. I see the
Excuse me.
potential problem would be if you're gonna park on the side of the common whenever it's allowed, then the cars would be parking where they don't normally park. You know, in other words, they'd rather park in front of my house because that's on the road that they're on. But if they have to park on the common, which they do a lot of times with school events, they do park on the common side headed toward the inn. So evidently it could be done. But except for that parking problem and some of the other stuff, it would at least alleviate some of that terrible crisis up at that corner. And I think having a roundabout up there would be fine, but there's a pretty pinched area to construct one of those. I think that would be very difficult. Anyway, that's,
Thank you, Earl.
yeah,
Thank you all. Actually, this is not a public hearing.
I
This is our-
understand.
No, I know you do. I'm just saying, generally speaking, it's a board meeting. We will have some public hearing type meetings where we encourage all the public to attend. They will be at night. There'll be at least one. But we haven't gotten there yet. And this meeting was for us to gather input and information from these guys who have been around a lot longer than we have dealing with roads,
Thank you for the
snow, and
clarification.
signs. So we appreciate,
As long as it should be another meeting.
you can hold our feet to the fire. We have not heard from you. What would you like to help us with?
No, I think what Chris said was, you know, the cheapest way, just looking at the two intersections without doing any engineering, would be to run from Dorchester to Route 10, because that's an easier intersection to narrow up one way. They suggested town of Newport has a common, and most of the frontage on, I mean, we have, ironically, Route 10 is on one side, and then, you know, over by where their post office is, that's one way up until you get to another town road partway up. So if you want that common is actually curbed. Isn't it curbed?
10 something.
Route 10 side's curbed, I can't remember if the other side's curbed or not.
No.
That'd be another question to ask.
And for plowing, if there's curbing, it's, 4 to 6 inch above the road level. The plow just, the driver just goes right along the edge of that, right? It doesn't interfere with this, because then the snow goes over onto the common.
Right, you just driving along the curb.
Is curbing a solution for the other side of the green, or we keep having intruders?
Yeah, the curbing has its own problems. I mean, it's good for traffic control, but you also gotta look at drainage and see where you gotta move your catch basins, the curb line. You
There
know,
are a couple of catch basins on that road.
yeah, now curbing is a good tool, but you have to, like I said, it has its own problems. But
I'm talking about the country store, right, where it's constant intrusion and very little success curbing.
But if we curb something, if we have a 4-foot shoulder, I think we curb it out at 5, to get that extra room for the drainage. A little bit of snow storage.
Yeah, the backside is different, but the Route 10 side, the state right away ends at the edge of the paving, so it's very narrow, especially on the common side.
Right, we don't like to curb anything that's less than 4 feet, just, if you got, just maneuvers of traffic, it gives you a little bit of breathing room, if you got a bicycle. The width of the plow, I think we're coming through at 12 feet, 14 feet,
From the window.
and 14 feet with the wind down, so we can stay on our own side of the road. That's another reason why we curb out 4 feet from the white line.
So if the town put a fence on the common, how would that be?
As I always say, put it on paper and we'll take a look at it, but you don't really wanna be more than, more than 4, any closer than 14 feet anyway.
14 feet from what wall?
Center.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm
The
not sure
plow
that
is
it's,
staying on our side of the road.
it doesn't have an easement or right of way or anything.
So,
Thank
So
you.
the right of way through there is prescriptive, so we assume 25 feet, but that doesn't always work, it's a good starting point. So basically what that means is, the right of way is what we maintain. So in that case, almost the edge of grass, edge of pavement, a little bit more, because like you said, if we're plowing, that snow has to go somewhere. And we wing it back to accommodate for future storms too, so. We run into this with private property owners too, like they'll put stuff right on the property line, which is fine, but we put them on aware that, a stockade fence, whatever, that it may be damaged because of the weight of the snow, not necessarily our equipment, but, so if they put it there, they're at risk of having it damaged, so. We try to have that discussion first, and make sure that, they're not doing it for one reason and expecting another outcome, so. We run into the same things with older stretches of town where like a cemetery is actually right here.
Right here,
So
yeah.
here you have guardrail, other towns don't, they just have dry laid stone walls, and the weight of the snow pushes those rocks off,
Yeah,
so it's, it's good, it's a nice wall, but it doesn't stand up to the test of time, it wasn't built, it just placed there, so.
yeah,
so.
But an engineering firm could quickly draft up some concepts. And that usually tells you it's the best way to go. Because visually it looks like it's gonna work, and then you start laying out distances, and next thing you know, you're not where you wanna be.
I think the utility poles on that side too, the common side,
Yep.
so you got that to look at too.
we have them on both sides, I believe. Yeah, we were going to try and do undergrounding, but that has, not gotten the traction that we were hoping it would. So, yeah, we have, okay.
Chris, I have one question that was asked of me earlier in the week. I believe, and maybe Doug remembers this, but 2 or 3 years ago, when the Common Committee was in the beginning stages of looking at things, we had talked about the ability to put a sidewalk down the southbound side of Union Street from the store south to the Stella's parking lot. At that time, I believe it was my understanding that in order to do that, we'd either lose the breakdown lane, or we'd have to have approval from business owners to put it beyond the
Their
breakdown
property.
lane. Is that accurate? I can't remember how that discussion worked, or can you tell us if that's something that could be done or not? I mean, I think
Either one
getting
works.
getting those business owners to cough up their property is gonna be difficult.
Right, so either way, if it's all in the right of way, that's one way to do it. Again, as Doug said, just propose something.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the consequence in that area would be that you lose that breakdown lane, or parking, if you will, for
Yeah.
all that. I know Latham House puts their A-frame sign out there, as many times I've asked them to move it, you know, whatever, it's business, it's, hopefully they're going slow through town, but technically it's not supposed to be there, but, so if you get rid of that, now you've got almost a similar situation on the northbound side. You have a very narrow shoulder, so if anyone tries to pull over, you know, now they're partway in the right, partway in the travel lane,
They are
partway
halfway
off.
in the travel lane.
And if it's curved, now you have a chance, obviously, a slash tire, you know,
Yep.
that stuff, so. There's pros and cons to each, the town would have to weigh that out. If the businesses jumped on board and it was outside the right of way, because there, I'm assuming it's Edgehaven as well, because we don't maintain outside of that, because of the fence and all that.
Right, yeah.
The gas pumps at the store, and then the parking at Stella's. So if they were on board with that, then they would have to work that out with the town. But the only thing we would get involved with that is essentially the face of the curbing, since it's on the edge of right of way, and just more just information for us, again, for drainage and for other aspects of the road. So.
Excellent, thank you.
Teeny tiny,
That's it.
we have a whole more
Yep.
agenda to
No,
go.
This is short. What I'm hearing you guys say, and what I'm hearing in the sense of the meeting, is the backside of the common and the common are kind of one package, and whatever work gets done, thinking about the mission for that whole package would be a worthy consideration.
For us, again, just where it meets our right-of-way and our road, that's the only part we're concerned with. Whether you go northbound for one way or southbound for one way, to us, it doesn't matter. We just want we want your geometry to match, to work for you, what you want it to do. You know, people that apply for us, like a 50-foot wide driveway, it's a free-for-all for egress there, so it causes a lot more confusion than it solves the problem. So we try to get them to narrow that up, so there's an in and an out, or whatever their goal is, so that it works, so.
Awesome, thank you.
So
Thanks for
I
coming.
just wanna correct you. The back side of the common, that road is now owned by the town.
Correct.
So we can work on the back side of the common without having to do anything on the Route 10 side.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying, is the common and the backside are a package and can be considered together. That's just a thought. Thank you.
Lori?
It is, it's a question for DOT though, since you're here, and I think, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason we talked about a sidewalk is one of the this is the common committee that met in 2019. Very concerned for safety and wondering about a crosswalk, basically in front of the country store. And the question was whether there has to have a sidewalk on either side. Can it just go across, say, into the parking lot of the country store, or to the side, and can it just come from the common itself?
Not necessarily. You can have so we work with our traffic bureau on the crosswalk. They have to approve the locations, and they have an engineering study that they do. There, obviously, the southbound corner there would be, from the north would be an aspect of it. But they look at it from a pedestrian, like from a motorist point of view. Would they reasonably expect foot traffic to cross the road at that designated spot? And they have their own process that they look to review. So any crosswalk proposals, just send them to us, we send them the traffic, and they'll review them
Okay.
and provide feedback as to where
Great.
they are.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
And those,
Thanks,
those
Judy,
that
down
need
there.
having those flash lights.
They'll dictate the reasonings on that. I mean, if there's a sidewalk and there's a place where they would expect it, I don't think they require them, but if it's just a random crossing of a road, that, again, the motorist would not expect a pedestrian to be there, like, there's nothing directing traffic, foot traffic there, then an RFB would be, they might recommend one of those.
Might recommend.
So, and just so those who are still here, we have in the past looked at different crosswalks at different places and been told by the traffic bureau that they would not install them without there being sidewalks connected to them. And, you know, things change.
Yeah, that's
And
what I was
you never know,
asking,
we can
yeah.
certainly look at them again. I don't think that would be our immediate first step, is not that. And then we have other issues that comes into play with the town, with maintenance and liability, and winter maintenance, so it's kind of a large scope, as you know,
Right,
having
right,
been on that committee.
again, for the
So,
consideration
Sean,
of the
you
entire
have
place.
anything more that you're thinking of, that these wonderful fellows who took their time to come up here?
No, not at this point, I do not.
Okay,
Yeah, just thinking, mentioning about the crosswalk, we wouldn't wanna give up any shoulder there for a crosswalk, so we'd be, the edge of shoulder probably towards the,
yeah,
property.
Businesses, yeah.
It'd be the business of owners.
so that's almost a no-go.
Right.
Okay,
I was just trying to get a plow truck through there in the winter, and go back to the 14 feet again.
Yep, right,
And I know traffic is historically in the past frowned upon mid-block crosswalks. They usually like to be where a town road crosses.
so you're looking for a crossing rather than just
Right.
scooching through.
Yeah, and I know historically in the past, they've always wanted a sidewalk on both sides.
yeah,
Yep,
It doesn't have to be a long one, but,
that's what they did at the school and the library here in Lyme. They have about the size of this.
but like you say,
sidewalk.
things change and,
Yep.
you know, the RFB, the flashing beacons, you know, that's come with a different set of regulations. And best thing to do is propose something, send it down to traffic, and they'll tell you what their thoughts are.
Excellent. Ben?
Well, I'm just saying, those flashing beacons already gave us quite a headache.
Yes.
yeah.
That's true. David, anything? Tina? Sean? Last bite at the apple? Thank you so
welcome.
much, it is really helpful.
And we just wanna say, I really appreciate you guys reaching out ahead of time. It really helps, you know, we find out like, you know, all of a sudden you guys
After
have
the fact.
equipment out there and you're starting to do stuff and we're like, whoa, what's going on here? So
Okay.
it really, it does help, you know, we appreciate Sean's interactions
Good.
and communication, so.
Great, well, we appreciate it too. Thank you very much, all right. Have a good rest of your week. Yes, 5 minutes. Okay, here's your break. It's a 5-minute break. When we come back, I think we will be going into non-public session, just so folks know.
Sorry about that, we're sitting out there.
No, well, I
called
was-
and now dispatch is looking for you, so if they call you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
I was like,
So Sue,
I didn't realize.
great idea about the kiosks.
Yeah.
Kiosk at the front.
Oh, great,
And,
thanks.
just in my
We already did the call.
visited many ponds and lakes in the state, and, I mean, I'm sure you've done this too, but I mean, I've taken pictures